Isaiah Monroe stood frozen behind a janitor cart at 7:12 p.m., his gloved hand gripping the mop handle as laughter and soft whispers drifted out of the executive office where his wife was supposed to be working late alone. The 45-year-old Isaiah Monroe was known to the business world as a ghost. A name on documents. A signature on billion-dollar deals. A man who owned half the skyline but rarely showed his face. To the public he was private. To his employees he was distant. And to his wife Claire Monroe, he was predictable. Isaiah built Monroe Global from nothing. Sleepless nights. Silent sacrifices. Decisions made in empty rooms. He trusted systems. Numbers. And loyalty. Especially loyalty. That night he walked into his own headquarters wearing a gray janitor uniform. Cap pulled low. Gloves on. ID badge that said night cleaning crew. No one recognized him. That was the point. Isaiah had heard the whispers. Rumors. Late meetings. Excuses that stopped adding up. He wanted truth. Not accusations. Not assumptions. Truth. The security guard barely looked up. Evening cleaner. Evening, Isaiah replied quietly. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. Every floor passing like a countdown. He pushed the cart down the executive hallway. Mopping floors he paid millions to polish. Listening to echoes of conversations behind glass walls. Then he heard her voice. Claire. Light. Playful. Different. Not the tired tone she used at home. Isaiah stopped walking. Inside the corner executive office lights were on. Blinds half open. He moved closer slowly. Each step heavier. Through the glass he saw her. Standing close to another man. Ethan Price. His chief operations officer. The man Isaiah trusted with everything. His schedules. His strategies. His absence. Claire laughed. Ethan leaned in. Too close. Isaiah's chest tightened. His hand shook slightly on the mop handle. You deserve more than him, Ethan said softly. Claire smiled. You always say that. Ethan touched her arm. She did not pull away. Isaiah felt the air leave his lungs. Not in anger. In disbelief. This was not a misunderstanding. Not a moment. Not an accident. It was familiarity. Then she did something that shattered him. She rested her forehead against Ethan's chest. Closed her eyes. Isaiah took a silent step back. The hallway spun. He remembered the nights he came home late. The dinners she reheated without complaint. The way she said she understood. He had mistaken patience for love. Silence for loyalty. Inside the office Ethan whispered something. Claire laughed again. Then kissed him. Slow. Comfortable. Unhidden. Isaiah turned away. His vision blurred. He did not storm in. Did not confront. Did not shout. He walked back down the hallway. Pushed the cart like a stranger. Like a man cleaning up someone else's mess. In the elevator his reflection stared back at him. A billionaire disguised as a cleaner. A husband watching his life collapse without a sound. Back in the lobby the security guard nodded again. Have a good night. Isaiah nodded. You too. Outside the city lights glowed indifferent. Cars passed. People laughed. Life continued. Isaiah sat in his car for a long time. Hands still gloved. Uniform still on. The pain came in waves. But beneath it something else formed. Clarity. He finally understood. The company was not the only thing he had built blindly. He had built trust in the wrong people. Isaiah started the engine. Not going home. Tonight was not about heartbreak. It was about awakening. Because the man they betrayed, the man they believed invisible, owned every floor they stood on. Isaiah did not go home that night. He drove until the city thinned and the noise faded. Until the weight in his chest stopped feeling like it would split him open. He parked near the river. Sat in the dark. Still wearing the janitor uniform. Still holding the smell of disinfectant on his hands. For the first time in 20 years he let himself feel everything. The betrayal. The humiliation. The realization that loyalty had been one-sided. He did not cry loudly. There was no collapse. Just a quiet cracking inside him. By sunrise he had made a decision. Not an emotional one. A precise one. Isaiah returned to his penthouse just long enough to shower and change. Claire was not home. A text waited on his phone. Working late again. Don't wait up. He stared at the message. Then set the phone down. At 9 sharp he walked into Monroe Global as himself. Tailored suit. Confident stride. Eyes clear. Executives froze when they saw him. Isaiah rarely appeared in person. Whispers followed him into the boardroom. He sat at the head of the table. Hands folded. Calm. Good morning, he said. We will begin immediately. Claire entered moments later. Laughing quietly with Ethan. Her smile vanished when she saw Isaiah. Her steps slowed. Her breath caught. Isaiah looked at her the same way he looked at financial reports. Without emotion. Without warmth. Please sit, he said evenly. The room felt different. Heavier. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Isaiah's eyes met his briefly. Then moved on. We are restructuring leadership roles, Isaiah continued. Effective immediately. A murmur rippled through the room. Claire spoke carefully. Isaiah. What is this about? Isaiah did not answer her. He nodded to the legal director. A folder slid across the table. Ethan Price. Your position as COO is terminated effective now. The words hit like a shockwave. Ethan stood abruptly. What? You can't. Security entered quietly. Isaiah finally looked at him. I can. And I am. Ethan's voice cracked. Is this about work? Isaiah replied calmly. It is about trust. Ethan said nothing more. He was escorted out without a word. Claire's hands trembled. She stared at Isaiah. Eyes wide. You are firing him, she whispered. Isaiah nodded. Yes. Why? Isaiah leaned forward slightly. Because he forgot who he worked for. And what he was paid to respect. The room stayed silent. Isaiah stood. Meeting adjourned. Executives scattered quickly. No one dared speak. Claire followed Isaiah into the private elevator. Her voice broke through the silence. Isaiah, please. Explain. He pressed the button. The doors closed. I was in the building last night, he said calmly. Her face drained of color. I was cleaning floors, she whispered. Yes, Isaiah replied. Mine. Her knees weakened. She grabbed the railing. You saw. Everything. Tears filled her eyes. It is not what you think. Isaiah looked at her then. Really looked. I saw you lean into him. I saw familiarity. I saw betrayal that did not start yesterday. She cried. You were never here. You chose the company over me. Isaiah nodded slowly. And you chose comfort over honesty. The elevator opened. They stepped out. Isaiah continued walking. Claire followed. We will discuss separation terms through attorneys, he said. This conversation is over. She collapsed onto a chair sobbing. Isaiah did not turn back. By noon the building buzzed. Rumors spread. Emails flew. By evening the board received official notice. Isaiah Monroe had assumed full operational control. All executive access revised. The same floors Isaiah cleaned the night before now stood silent as he walked through them openly. That night Isaiah returned home alone. Sat in the dark living room. The space echoed. Pain still lived there. But something else lived too. Resolve. Because heartbreak had opened his eyes. By the next morning the company felt unfamiliar even to those who had worked there for years. Emails marked confidential circulated quietly. Access badges were deactivated. Calendars wiped clean. Isaiah arrived early. Earlier than anyone expected. He walked the halls without disguise this time. No cap. No gloves. No cart. Heads lifted. Whispers died. People straightened instinctively. Not because he demanded it. But because the air around him carried certainty. In the executive suite Claire sat alone. Eyes swollen. Makeup untouched. She had not slept. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends who suddenly did not know what to say. From colleagues who pretended nothing was wrong. From her mother asking what she had done. Isaiah entered without knocking. She stood immediately. Isaiah, please. He raised a hand gently. Sit. She obeyed. I am not here to argue, he said calmly. I am here to conclude. She wiped her face. You humiliated me. Isaiah nodded. I understand that is how it feels. Feels, she snapped. You destroyed everything. Isaiah met her eyes. No. I removed the illusion that was already broken. She shook her head. You never listened. You were never present. Isaiah took a slow breath. I listened. I provided. I trusted. Trust is not absence. It is belief. She fell silent. The legal documents were placed on the table. Separation. Asset division. Non-disclosure. Everything fair. Everything precise. You planned this, she whispered. Isaiah shook his head. I prepared for truth. Not betrayal. She signed with shaking hands. When she looked up, tears streamed freely. Do you still love me? Isaiah paused. A long pause. Love does not survive where respect dies. That was the end. News of Ethan's termination spread quickly. So did rumors. But no one challenged the decision. Because Isaiah released nothing. He did not leak. He did not accuse. He let patterns speak. An internal audit followed. Emails. Meetings. Irregularities. Ethan's access had been abused. Resources misused. Boundaries crossed. By the end of the week the truth was undeniable. Claire's reputation cracked publicly. Not shattered. But marked. The woman who once stood beside the founder. Now stood alone. Isaiah did not celebrate. He spent his evenings walking the city. The same city he built quietly. Watching people live lives untouched by boardrooms. One evening he returned to the building after hours. Not as a cleaner. But not as a spectacle either. He walked to the executive office where he once saw everything. The lights were off. The room empty. He stood there remembering the sound of laughter. The way his heart had broken silently. He placed his hand on the glass. Then turned away. Some wounds do not close. They simply teach you where not to bleed again. Weeks passed. Claire moved out. The penthouse echoed with absence. Isaiah filled it with purpose. He restructured leadership. Promoted from within. Elevated people who worked quietly. Who stayed late. Who respected the floor as much as the ceiling. Morale shifted. The company breathed differently. Employees whispered stories. Did you know he once cleaned his own floors? Did you know he fired his own COO without shouting? The legend grew. But Isaiah ignored it. One night a letter arrived. No return address. Isaiah. I know I have no right to ask. But I need to say this. I did not fall for him. I fell away from myself. And you saw it before I did. I am sorry. Claire. Isaiah read it once. Then placed it in a drawer with the others. Not to forget. But to remember clearly. Because forgiveness does not require reunion. Isaiah Monroe woke before dawn the way he always had. Not because he needed to. But because discipline had shaped him long before money did. The penthouse felt different now. Quieter. Not lonely. Clear. He stood by the window watching the city stretch awake. Lights flickering. Buses starting routes. People chasing days that did not know his name. For the first time in years Isaiah felt unburdened. The ache was still there. But it no longer controlled him. He dressed simply. No flash. No announcement. At Monroe Global a new energy moved through the building. Employees spoke freely. Laughed softly. Worked with intention. Isaiah noticed the smallest things. A receptionist who smiled without fear. An analyst who asked a question without apology. This was the company he meant to build. Not just profitable. But principled. He called a full staff meeting. No stage. No lights. Just people. I learned something recently, Isaiah said calmly. Power does not come from being seen. It comes from seeing clearly. He looked around the room. I walked these halls unseen. And what I found will shape how we move forward. No mention of betrayal. No names. From now on promotions will be based on integrity. Leadership will be accountable. And silence will never be mistaken for weakness. Applause followed. Not loud. Honest. That afternoon Isaiah signed documents establishing the Monroe Integrity Trust. Funding ethics training. Employee protections. Mental health support. The company would grow. But not at the cost of dignity. Across town Claire sat in a small cafe staring into a cup of untouched coffee. The world she once lived in had shrunk dramatically. She replayed the moment behind the glass. The laughter. The kiss. The janitor cart. She finally understood what broke Isaiah. It was not just infidelity. It was arrogance. The belief that power gave permission. She stood and left the cafe. Walking into a life she now had to rebuild from scratch. Weeks later the media ran a story. Billionaire CEO goes undercover. Uncovers betrayal. Rebuilds company with unusual leadership. Isaiah declined interviews. He had said enough. One evening he returned to the building after hours again. Not to confront memory. But to reclaim space. He stood in the hallway where he once held the mop. Closed his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. Not to anyone. But to the moment that forced him to wake up. He walked on. Months passed. The company thrived. Quietly. Steadily. Isaiah's name became associated not with scandal. But with trust. One night his phone buzzed. A message from a number he had not saved. It was Claire. I am starting over. I am learning who I am without applause. I hope you are well. Isaiah read it. Then placed the phone face down. He did not reply. Not out of bitterness. But because some chapters do not need an epilogue. Later that night Isaiah sat on his balcony. The city humming below. He thought about the man behind the cart. The pain. The clarity. He smiled slightly. Because heartbreak had not destroyed him. It had refined him. The company was stronger. The man was clearer. And the lesson was simple. Never underestimate the quiet man. Never assume the unseen is powerless. And never betray someone without knowing who built the floor beneath your feet. Isaiah Monroe did not raise his voice. Did not seek revenge. Did not beg for truth. He discovered it. Mopped around it. And then stood up. As himself. And that was how he won.